All right. Hi, and welcome to The Scoop. I'm Farah,
And I'm Nicole.
and we have another fun episode. We are going to talk about our leveled system that will go over each level of how you move on a pathway specific for to get up to leadership. So, and just kind of what that looks like and how that builds. So, Nicole, I'm going to hand it over to you if you would like to
Mhm.
start with our first level.
Okay, yeah, our first level is the new hire level. So that takes you all the way through like your first 40 hours of training and all of onboarding, including an introduction to what we call NVC, so that nonviolent communication piece, which is a process in which we can communicate and connect with others, build relationships. So a little bit of an intro into some of our like core values and how we build rapport.
That's awesome. Does everybody have to go through that process?
Yeah, everyone goes through onboarding and training and all of those aspects to at least kind of start to build those like foundational skills for sure. Sometimes people will, however, come into our organization at a different, maybe clinical level. So they might come in as an RBT already. So they already have a lot of those like foundational areas. So what we do in that case is we kind of make sure that those have maintained and generalized to our clients and our organization and our staff. And then we sign off on those as well so that nothing holds anyone back and they can continue to travel down this pathway.
And would you say that Sonnenberg sometimes has some different beginning steps that could be missing, or maybe just that another company didn't go over? And if so, then sometimes can that have to be maintained or what have you to be able to move up? And what does that look like for somebody that's coming in, with maybe some experience as an RBT or something, a training RBT, I think other companies do. So what does
Mm-hmm.
that look like as far as them coming in? I know we're going to go over the levels, but what
Mm-hmm.
does that look like for them?
Yeah, so I think that our culture is unique in kind of what we embed into values, into reflective practice, and what reflective supervision looks like in application, as well as some of the communication systems, such as NVC, that we utilize as an organization, is unique to the field. So I would assume that it would also be unique to individuals coming from like another ABA provider into our organization. So sometimes there is some splinter skills within those areas or those kind of like interpersonal skills that we do just want to make sure have a solid foundation before moving forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool. Can you tell us about the next level?
Yeah, so the next level is our BTT level. So that is coming out of like that onboarding piece and into likely at this level, you are engaging in one-on-one services with a handful of clients pretty independently, and you're starting to build more of those foundational skills as well as following some of our processes and policies that you were informed about in orientation, and now kind of following those same processes without prompts, I would say.
Okay, that's nice. And then is there anything in there about attendance or anything like that that would, either pause you, or what does that look like in each level too? And does that just roll over to each level, like some of the same things, like I'm saying, like attendance? There's something else I'm not thinking of, but what would
Mm-hmm.
you comment about that?
Yeah, we look at the levels as like building blocks. So the bottom block doesn't get, it's not Jenga, right, where it gets pulled out. I guess it could be Jenga because it would all fall over and then you would have to start over. Uh, but it's more of these like building blocks. So all the levels build off of each other. So whatever skills you have in level one, let's say, have to maintain all the way throughout the other areas. So with that being said, we do build off of like our policies and procedures as well as our clinical pieces, as well as like our interpersonal areas. So there is attendance in there, there is dress code in there, there's converting, there's call-in procedures, all of those areas that we've kind of set a standard of care for. So those areas.
So that when you come in, that's obviously how you would move on from your new hire level one going into level two, and then level two with that expectation would just keep rolling up to each level.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's obviously very important. Those policies, I think that's a great way to explain it. Okay, awesome. And then so you described level two. And one thing that we're kind of excited about too is for each level, as you probably already saw and at this point in the video, is that we have some people explaining kind of what level one was to them and how that helped them to get to level two and then level two to level three. So we'll continue to do that as well. So we have kind of some people that have gone through it that will be helpful for others that are watching. Okay, so level two, and then what happens in level three?
Well, level two, I don't think we touched on
Oh,
quite yet. So level two, there's a level 2A and there's a level 2B.
oh,
So basically, the first part of that is what we call a verified trainer. So it's becoming someone who, because like now you're going from like a BTT and kind of like learning the ropes, right?
mhm.
To an individual who can train other new hires. Um,
Okay.
and so then we focus on some developmental areas in order to now train others to do what you do. So that process is embedded in that level like two area.
Okay.
Past that, you get to more of like an RBT position. So you start doing like your 40-hour RBT training courses and you start kind of like developing growth in that area to get that certification. So that's kind of where that level 2A and 2B are.
Okay, and why did we choose to not do RBT right from the beginning? A lot of companies give 30 to 60 days or something like that to become an
Mhm.
RBT. So why didn't we do that right from the beginning?
Well, I'm going to answer that, but first I'm going to tell you why other companies need to do that is because there are certain insurance companies that require the BTTs to hold an RBT certification. And we have one insurance company that like a big umbrella insurance company that honors that piece and the rest does not. And so when most ABA companies are now owned by a large corporation in
Mm,
which they are across different states and things of that nature. And so, to avoid this state being different than this state or having different requirements, they set like a standard across the board. And so, therefore, everyone has to be an RBT right from the beginning.
okay, that makes sense.
Um, so we um don't so one, we don't necessarily need to have every single person be an RBT. However, I do really value that credential and that training process and what that means to the employee because it means that they take that credential wherever they go. And it is through the board. So the BACB like accepts that as like the uh, credential. Um, and so, however, it is a lot of work to do that. And it is a little bit further along our levels because it is a commitment to the organization and to the employee to hold that credential. So it allows them a little bit more like training and development into the field to really commit to like, is this something that I want to do? Is this a certification I'm committed to and I value before kind of jumping into that? Because they also have the option to like not go through that credential, and that's okay too.
So what is the difference between a tech and an RBT? Like you said, it's a lot of work. So what does that kind of briefly look like?
Yeah, so the RBT goes through because we also don't do it at onboarding, they go through an additional 40-hour training course through the CR Institute.
Okay.
And then they do a competency assessment, and then they do an exam. That's a short version of all of the steps. Um, and so they can kind of choose whether or not they want to continue to grow in that way. Um,
And it's changed a little bit too. So it's every other year, right? Versus every year.
yeah, so the recertification is every 2 years, and you're required to do PDUs. So kind of like we as BCBAs do CEUs, they do PDUs. So those like professional development courses to keep their credential. So it is a commitment, a great commitment. I mean, I'm definitely pro like education and growth and credentials for sure. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't think
And
that the actual like job description changes, but your growth does.
okay, that makes sense. And does Sonnenberg offer those PEUs? Um, do they have to pay for that? Do they have to pay for the recertification? What does that look like at Sonnenberg?
Yeah, they don't have to pay for anything
Oh,
through their certification, their PDUs. So we will pay for all of their testing. We'll pay for their like recertification. We also pay for all of their PDUs. So we have a couple options of how they can get those PDUs. They the CR Institute has them for free through our organization and our partnership with them. So they can feel free to log in at any point and take any courses that they find interesting to get those. The other thing we do is we have our clinical directors run a PDU event once a month on various topics, and they are more than welcome to schedule any of those or come in person. So basically, we tried to cover all modalities of learning. So they could do in person, they can do online or virtual,
nice.
etc. So
Yeah, that's nice. Thank you.
mhm.
Um, okay, so what else in level two did we cover everything?
Yes. And then level 3 is the getting of the RBT certification.
Okay. You wanna what else does that look like in level three? Anything else?
Not too much. I mean, every level has what we call like a checklist, which is now a course in the CR Institute that they will take. So every level has like kind of a different topic. So they have foundational skills, advanced skills, verbal behavior, data collection. So just kind of like the building of skills within each level is also very present. As well as a commitment to like personal goal development included within each one.
And so I'm hearing too with you were talking about building blocks and how it's going, it just keeps building, building, building. Why is this different from other companies or how do you compare that as far as in the why that we do that? Like why not just teach everybody right from the beginning, get RBT certified and all the different stuff right away, so it's over and you just can kind of move forward. And is there pay differences and like what is the motivation behind those building blocks?
Yeah, I don't think that like a BTT or RBT role is different from other organizations. However, what we're about to talk about is different, and we have different levels for individuals who maybe don't want to go the route of a BCBA, which I think is unique to our organization and our model, because most companies, it's you have BCBAs and you have RBTs, and those are the positions. Where we offer another layer of support, another two layers technically of support, that kind of lead us to the end of those levels and into more leadership positions that may not necessarily require a BCBA or like a credential of that nature.
That's awesome. And I think what's important to add on that too is we have a lot of people that come in and they think it's just a stop of like, I'm going to get a little bit for my resume. And some people do get a little bit for my resume because I'm moving on in some psych or social or education or what have you, or behavioral health. And this kind of helps them to decipher which route they want to go, which you're about to talk about, some of those, next building blocks. And so I think it's helpful because we've had many people, some that will be on, or that are on these kind of interviews or, just going to answer some questions for us about how they made the decisions that they made. Because many started off with it's just a pit stop, right? Like I'm going to stop, I'm going to get some experience, move on. And they fell in love with it or thought, oh, I actually think I could do this. Or there's other areas that I could build on to get to this other area that I never thought about that I think is what makes us different, Sonnenberg different from other companies because we do offer such different pathways and that's by the leveled system. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and what that looks like? And then I think some of our interviews also will help with some of that too as we move along here.
Yes, I would love to. Now, I don't know how much background you want on SCS, but that is the next level that we're talking about. So SCS stands for Support Care Specialist. Many people don't know that because we are a field with lots of acronyms. And so why would this be any different? So we do call them SCS. And originally, this started because we're also unique in the sense of the populations that we take and the clientele that we have here, different from other other ABA organizations like within our area. And so we started with a couple people who basically did like crisis management and helped with that behavior reduction, de-escalation pieces. And that evolved into something much greater. And now it is a pretty large umbrella under our consultant side of Sonnenberg that has many different roles within it, including crisis management, which was the original. We're also adding mentorship and onboarding roles under SCS, as well as group instruction. And we also have quality checks or quality control officers as well. So it kind of encompasses every need within the organization that we have as that like extra support layer to help our seniors, our BCBAs, and mostly our clientele. And it does allow individuals to now make ABA a career, which is, I think, what you were kind of explaining earlier. At least that's how I perceived it, was that, like, yes, some people, this is an entry level position. So some people come and then go, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. However, we also wanted to make it possible for people to have careers with us who want to be working with the clients and want to be more one-on-one and hands-on and want and all of them are all of our SCS members are very, very good at what they do. And so that is kind of that like area of the levels. And so when they get to like the 4A, 4B, so 4B is the completion of like the SES training. So it is a 36-week training process because we have three 12-week units that teach different skills. And
Mhm.
then when they're done with that graduation or training program and they graduate, they will choose their number one and number two preference on what role they would like to take um, between the four areas that I mentioned. And then what we do is we have each location within our organization will have slots kind of set up. So we'll have like shifts, like, okay, we have two mentor shifts at this location available. We have three crisis management shifts at this location available. And then we will like slot them based off of like their preferences and their goals, and they kind of get to develop their own pathway and what they want to do at that point.
Very cool. I think some of the things I was thinking about too, as you were talking about, just as we're talking about the different levels, is one thing that I think is really cool that we've developed. Really, we were the pioneers in this was what, because you were saying, how do we get people to see that this can be a career and this can be, a great career to be in, that you can still have a family and you can still afford to live and all of the different things, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing that it can be very difficult in this field.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about in our earlier podcast about boundaries. We continue to talk about that. It's a really hard thing in this field, is making sure that you have boundaries and that you can have a beginning and an end. That's something that we really work hard on with all of our staff, is having beginning and end of day, because it never really ends. It just starts up the next day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So um, we were definitely pioneers and still are in that we have a beginning and end of the day, and that it's 8:15 and at the latest 6, and we don't do later than that. We don't do weekends, things like that in general. And we did that purposely so people can have families, people can have a beginning and end, and that you can also be back to back, versus a lot of the field still is you go in for a 2 hour shift in the morning and then you have all day open and then you go for a night, like till 8 o'clock. I mean, I remember those days. And sometimes just weekends and nights and things like that. And of course, you can choose different ways of how that looks. But I think that's really important too. And we set up our whole system that you've been explaining thus far so we can do that. Because if you only have people that can work at this time, and they're only there for weekends or something like that, what do you do during the day? That's kind of how a clinic is set up. So you have all your systems running and that support. So everybody's kind of helping each other, right? And as you go up in the levels as well, you get more and more independent, and can do more and more, which is really important. I think a really good part of our levels too is we want people to work independently.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we put so much time and training and have so many resources at everybody's fingertips so they can do that. Would you agree with that? And is there anything that
Mm-hmm.
you would add to that?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that it is set up for you to kind of get to level four-ish, right? And to have more I don't know the word for it, more autonomy maybe, to also look at, okay, well, what do I want for myself? How do I want to continue to grow? What accountability do I have towards an integrity towards like my own goals and development? Because then once independence also looks at, okay, well, what goals do I have for myself versus someone making for me um, to get to the next thing? Or like, what do I want to do? And we
Yeah.
prompt the conversations, right? Like we'll say, okay, these are the roles within SCS. Are you interested in any of these? Or these are some of our other pathways past SCS. Like, what are your interests in those, and we'll help you get there, but it's really about like that person and that like intrinsic drive to want to, the willingness, I would say.
For sure. And all of this rolled out because of the needs of the clients and of the staff. It's not
Yeah.
just the clients. And I think that's very unique too, is we wanted to be able to, I mean, retention's a huge problem in the field. So um, retention was a huge area and a huge target of ours to be able to, again, have a career or have in at least a longer extended time that people feel supported and want to stay on and hopefully have a career, right?
Mm-hmm.
So um, that's a high burnout field for sure. I would say one of the
Yeah.
highest.
Yeah.
And so that's something that we're really aware and it's upfront and it's talked about. And so I think that's also really helpful with these different levels and pivoting to different areas, which we talked about in the prior podcast of the different buildings and why we're doing what we're doing with the different buildings too. So we can specialize in the different areas and have the people that are needed in those areas be present.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it looks much different, with, the different buildings and the different needs of age, of, kind of where, things happen, So I think that's important to say too. It's very unique to us, but very intentional. Everything through the years have been very intentional. Um, okay, so
Yeah,
where
I
did
think
we?
it plays, well, I think it, before we move on, I think it also plays to like strengths, which is something that we talk about quite frequently,
Yeah,
is that like there needs to be like some motivation there to have like quality within the work, and to have people that are empowered and that like really want this.
love
Because
that.
that does trickle down to client progress, to caregivers, to everything that we do. And so it is really important to look at individual strengths and help to use those to guide in a position that hopefully is fulfilling and joyful in all those areas.
That's a really valuable point to make for sure. Is it is such a high burnout field that if you don't have access to what makes you tick and why you did this in the first place, it's that makes it that much more, of a burnout. So yeah, that's a really good point. Anything else with this level, or do you want to go over the final kind of steps and where that looks and
I'll
where
go
that?
over the final steps. So,
Oh,
so you can choose to be in SCS, because we have developed the SCS program to be a pretty like fulfilling career that also allows you flexibility in what your interests are and where your strengths are, to choose what role within that program that would benefit you the most.
okay.
So there is like autonomy and flexibility there. And then additionally, we do have clinic coordinator roles outside of the levels, as well as the senior intern program, which we are calling the apprenticeship program. And
Okay.
so you can go down a couple different avenues within there. We're also considering, we opened up a operations department in January. And so the clinic coordinator position is under like the operations department. So there's a whole operations pathway that we have developed. When positions become available, that is another avenue that you can take. And then we also have a supervisor pathway as well, which includes the apprenticeship, the supervisors, what we call seniors, the student analysts, the all the way up. So student analysts to BCBA, to lead BCBAs, to assistant directors, and then to clinical directors. And then you have the executive team.
That's
So
awesome.
there's a couple different kind of forks in the road if you would like to explore those areas.
And you're always kind of in training for the next level if that's what choose to do, to pivot or to keep going on your pathway. Or you can pause and be whatever you're in, correct?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So
Mhm.
that's cool because we do have all different, and it doesn't mean that the growth stops. It just means that it's there and you keep growing in that position,
Mhm.
and becoming more experienced and gaining more knowledge, right?
Yes. Yeah, because even so like the SCS members that graduate their training program and choose a role with under that like umbrella continue to grow. They might try different roles. They might continue to grow in that role because we're always like evolving. So if you're, for example, in like group instruction, we're looking at like, okay, now we want to develop this group and what does that
Okay.
look like and what does the curriculum look like, and so we start to expand there, which opens up even more growth opportunities under that kind of like same umbrella. Similar to like if you choose a clinic coordinator route, then you maybe are at like a smaller location for training and then transition to a larger location, because then that's managing more people, a bigger campus, things like that. So,
And we've had many people think that that's what they were going to do, as a career, for whatever, and
mhm.
then change their mind and say, yeah, I feel really confident in this position now. I think I want another challenge. So, that happens too. So it's okay. It doesn't have to be like, this is what I'm going to do. And we're like, nope, that's not what you said,
Yes.
so we're always encouraging, to keep looking ahead and see what the needs are. Just like we do, right? With each building and each, population of, that we're working with. So I think that's really cool too. Is there anything else that you haven't talked about, Nicole, in the levels or in that you would like to end with?
I don't think so. I mean, the purpose of them too is that there is training within that level, kind of like you mentioned, especially if you're moving on. If your goal is to move on to the next level or job, then there's all the training kind of up front within the previous level to get you to the next one, if that makes sense. And that's very like intentional as well, so that we are not holding anyone back, but we're also not rushing through training, because we want everyone to have like to feel really good about like what they're stepping into with like more understanding of like what that role is to its entirety, right? Because like,
Yeah, the transparency of that, of what that,
yeah,
yeah.
because sometimes if you take like part of it, but then you like, so you might have your current role and then take part of the other role, then you don't know what that other role looks like
Mm.
fully. And so we're being a little bit more intentional with what that training process looks like, so that before you're done with the training process, there's like a generalization phase, I should say, where you've completed that role to its entirety, um, even after training for 3+ months, to really get a feel for like what that looks like, to make sure that that's also like what you want to do, and that you still have those like mentorship opportunities alongside you during that process too.
Yeah, that made me think of something else when you were saying that, because that's something that, we've seen over time is that somebody thinks they know what they are wanting to do, and then they start to, I want to say dabble or learn or train or what have you. And they're like, oh, this isn't what I thought, or this is too much, or that's happened many times. And so we can
Mhm.
pivot, and right.
Yeah.
That's
And that's
okay.
and that's okay. I think how we're working towards developing our training processes has helped us work through some of those things a little bit earlier on. Like even caseload pieces, like, hey, like this isn't like the population that I'm very strong at. So can we pivot? And like all of that is great. You know, that just leads us down like a different path a little bit sooner, so that we don't miss out on all the learning opportunities along the way.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. That's nice. Because yeah, that's definitely is something people think they know and then they don't, and you really
Mhm.
don't know until you're in what you're doing. So I
Mhm.
like that. That's great. And
I
it's
think we
different in different
also,
environments.
well, yeah, and we also offer so much support in the beginning that if you're not like fully doing that role in that generalization phase I was talking about, and that support like pivots to the next thing, then it's a big difference because like
Yeah.
we provide so much support. Like you're basically like with your trainer like the entire time or with your mentor the entire time, and then that mentor like evaporates almost. And
Right.
so we
Yeah.
really want to make sure that there can be more not that they go away, but that we can transition to more of like a check-in uh basis, and but you're already committed to like, okay, I know what this feels like, I know what this is like, I'm comfortable here, like I have
Yeah,
my
that makes
strengths in
sense.
these areas, etc.
Yeah, that makes sense. I love that. And what you mentioned it earlier about the strengths being what we really try to focus on, and we're really trying to look at those and making sure we're staying with um, parts of people's strength that make them successful and feel good about what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and having access to, like you said, that joy and that fulfillment because it is not, there's a lot going on, and every day looks a
Mm-hmm.
little different, even if it's your same rule, it does look different. So, being okay with that, I think is really important and loving to come in, more often than not. Obviously, you have
Mm-hmm.
days and moments and things like that, but that's one thing that we're really trying to target and stick with and be very intentional about as we move, forward each
Yeah.
day. So, okay, well, I think that's great. And I'm really excited as we're wrapping up here. Is I hope that all of the interviews and kind of the people that are talking about those different positions is helpful as well, and kind of how they got there and what they did and what made them successful, and even how they might have pivoted, into I thought I was going this way, but then I went this way, and this is why. And it's different for everybody, and we really love that uniqueness of each individual. I think that's the best part of my job is to watch people grow and have those aha moments of like, oh, I get it, and I really like this now, or this isn't at all what I thought, so I'm going to go this way. So that's my kind of. I think that's why I love what I do is to watch that. What do you love, Nicole, about kind of what has transpired and what we've intentionally kind of, you know, rolled out here? What's your
Mm-hmm.
favorite kind of parts of that?
I mean, I love like mentoring people. I love like the conversations that I get to have about people's growth, and the excitement that like they see. I also love the uniqueness of that and like the creativity, making like roles and like pivoting in that way, and making systems that are really effective like for the
Yeah.
people. That's really important to me. So like it's been a joy to be more involved with the levels and have one-on-one conversations with like staff, supervisors, you name it, because it does like bring me closer to them, and like understanding like where they're at and like where they want to go, is really rewarding for me.
Well, and then ultimately, then the kids or the clients, all the different ages and whatever, get what they need.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said earlier, I think hit the nail on the head was, really it's about getting the clients quality, sessions. And the only way you do that is you have people that want to be there and are
Mm-hmm.
excited to be there and are, motivated by the outcomes of what we do. So I think that's why we put so much effort and work into each other because we
Mm-hmm.
want to continue to give great services. And when something isn't as great as we want it to be, well, that's what we do because
Mm-hmm.
that's how it pivots and you target those areas. So thanks, Nicole, for all that you do. And it's so exciting to watch each step and just when we have these big aha moments or something we discover and we bring to each other. I love the openness of like, yeah, 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 that's great. Like, we're going to use that. How do we use this? Or what does that look like? It's so fun to be amongst other people that have that same joy of discovery and of like, oh yeah, that's totally going to benefit what we're trying to do. We can take this piece and learning how to do that so it doesn't overwhelm other people.
Mhm.
So it just enhances what we're doing, and it's just maybe another aha moment for us or for them.
Mhm.
So, so I'm excited for everybody that has watched through this and has learned from each level. And if you have any questions, of course, we're always open to questions or, going over through more or suggestions too for the future. Is great. We love that too, because we'll do another podcast on something that, you want to know more about. But otherwise, I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks guys for joining us. Everybody that tuned in, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Hello, my name is Darvell. I'm currently the operations lead here at Sonnenberg. I kind of wanted to give an overview of my experiences here at Sonnenberg and basically just like what all I did to kind of like get the positions that I've gotten, if that's even a word. I don't even know if that's a word, but basically just like give you an overview of like my experiences here, my growth path, and yeah, and just like everything like that. So I wanted to start off by saying I started here at Sonnenberg back in April of 2021. And during that time, I was kind of going from job to job. I was pretty much just graduating from college, just trying to figure out exactly like what I wanted to do. And honestly, it never crossed my mind to like go into like the ABA field. I kind of was when I graduated with marketing and business management. So it had nothing to do with like becoming a behavioral technician or becoming a BCBA or anything of the sort. And so when I was applying for jobs, because I was going from job to job back in 2021 before I landed this job, I noticed that there was a position for a behavioral technician open for here, in which I looked at this description and I was kind of a little bit on the fence just because it was discussing like how these clients can be aggressive and like they can spit, they can do all these things. And during that time, like honestly, I wasn't too worried about like the aggression pieces. I was more worried about like, cause I'm a huge germaphobe. So like, if you don't know me, like yeah, I'm a germaphobe. So I noticed that like, oh, they might put things in their mouths, they may be spitting, they may be doing all those things. So I was like, okay, like I'm gonna have to wear gloves. Like what, I'm gonna have to do something to make up for it. But I ended up was like talking to a friend during that time, and they were like, hey, just like I would never recommend this to a person, but they were like, hey, why don't you just try it? If you don't like it, then you can quit. Of course, like that's just kind of like any job. If you don't like it, you quit. But I kind of really wanted to see like, is this something I could do? And so when I got the job, the beginning I would say was kind of rocky for me. I was put on some clients where at the time for me I wasn't really ready because I was just like brand new in like the field, and so they were a little bit more overwhelming than I expected. And so the first week I kind of was like, I'm a different person than who I was back then, so I was a little bit more of a firecracker. So I went to the office and I was like, hey, like this area is not for me. So like either you guys can like switch me or I could just quit right then and there. Like I kind of just like at that point that was like my fifth job like that year in April. And so I was like, honestly, I don't got time to really waste your time, and I really don't have time to waste my own time. So I was like, hey, like, is there a possibility we can make a switch? And I'm glad that even though I did not bring it up in the most professional manner, I feel personally, they kind of adhered to what I had to say and they switched me around. And so I ended up in a behavioral mod track, in which during that time I was kind of like set up with like a supervisor, which was Leah, and like kind of who oversaw, well, Nicole, who was like the regional director now, who oversaw Leah during that time too as well. So I gotta say, like, as well as like she was like a huge part of like my growth path, starting from when I was a BTT to like even now as an operations lead. But during that time, like I felt like when I switched to tracks, like instantly I felt comfortable. And even though the clients were a little bit more behavioral, I felt that that was something that I actually I like to do. or I kind of like to like help out with, if that makes sense. And so, like I said, instantly hit it off like within like that room. And by the time I knew it, like I was kind of like slowly but surely like moving up, even though I didn't even notice I was. But I was a BTT who was like doing so many things that were in terms of, we had a behavioral support specialist role, and I was doing a lot of those things. But we only had one person who did that during the time, and it was a guy named Michael. And so like at that time I was like, okay, like maybe they wouldn't have like anything available for me, you know. But like at the same time, I knew I wanted to like do different things, or I knew I wanted to like grow within like the company. I just didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. But fast forward, I ended up, like I said, like I was helping out with so many different things. Like even as a BTT, they offered me to become a senior intern, in which I was like, you know, maybe that is something like I would like to do. But during that time, I kind of went through a hard time mentally, and so it kind of like took me back a little bit. But when I came back to work, I kind of had the impression that, yeah, no, this senior intern role was not really for me. And I was kind of just doing it just because I wanted to grow, but like I knew that's not what I wanted to do. And so I ended up just leaving that behind and just like staying as a BTT during the time. And then I remember they asked me at some point, like a couple months later, about a behavioral support specialist role. And like they asked me if I was interested, and I was like, absolutely. Like this is like something, like I love behaviors. Like even though like a lot of people don't really like behaviors, like something about behaviors I love. Like I don't know if it's just because like I love helping individuals or I love helping the staff members, but I kind of always liked behaviors, or I like the more behavioral clients, if that makes sense. So I was like, absolutely, like I would love to like do that. And so I was a behavioral support specialist for a while. And I felt that during that time, like that's when I learned the most, even though during that time I didn't think I was like, I didn't consider myself a supervisor, but like I kind of was. And I just knew I was the person that were going to help staff and be there for them and de-escalate individuals when they're upset. And so I felt really needed, and I was like, okay, like this is something that I actually love to do, and like this is something that I can see myself doing more in my future. And so I did that for a while. And like I said, I didn't say that yet, but I'm a person who likes to keep growing. I get bored if I feel like I'm not growing enough, or I feel that I'm like staying in a place or level of, you know, just growth, period. So I'm always looking to like exceed. And so during that time, I talked to like my supervisor about like, hey, like I'm looking to get my master's, and I want to basically pursue something like higher, but I don't know exactly like what. And this was, I'm pretty sure it was Nicole who I talked to about this. And during the time, we had just created this assistant director position. And I was like, okay, like I didn't know if like that was something I really wanted to do. I was a little nervous about it just because I felt like I had leadership qualities, but I didn't really put it into perspective as much as I wanted it to. And so it was a little bit difficult for me, but I was really, really devoted to like, you know, be great, be quite honest with you. And so I got my master's, ended up becoming an assistant director. Charmaine, who was my supervisor, who was still my supervisor, helped me with like everything. I would say she taught me most of everything I knew, like professionalism, being there, being present, just like the ropes around like the systems and all that. And I'm really, really appreciative of her, because like without her, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at now. And so I want to give her flowers. Same as Nicole. I feel like they both kind of took me under their wing and just like taught me everything I knew, know now. So I do appreciate them for everything they have done for me. But I would say what helped me grow within like this current position that I have is just my devotion to want to be a better person, or just like help other individuals. I love that I'm able to like help staff members out. I love that they're able to like come to me and just trust me with certain things. And that was a worry for me, because in the beginning I felt like, I don't know, I thought I was like a little bit, I know I'm not the most intimidating looking, but in my perspective, I felt that I was more intimidating. So like, I didn't know if people were gonna come to me or feel comfortable enough to come to me. And so like, that was like hard for me in the beginning, but I guess with my personality, I already knew it would be fine. I knew it was gonna be fine at the end of the day. But I would say what just like kind of helped me grow is just, the big part is just my own devotion to like my own growth path, and just those two individuals, Nicole and Charmaine, helping me and just like keeping me motivated and making sure that not only am I staying on the right path, but at the same time holding me accountable when I am messing up. And I feel like that was really, really important. And at first, it was really hard for me because I hated feedback, hated it so much. And only just because, like, not really because, like, oh, I thought I was above feedback. It was more like less like, when you hear feedback, it's kind of like, oh man, I'm doing something wrong, so they must hate me or something like that. It was like, I always kind of get in my head, but I had to tell myself like, hey, this is just for me to like grow as a person and for me to be a better operations lead or assistant director during that time too as well. So I do appreciate them for holding me accountable and giving me that feedback when I needed it. I think that's mostly it. Like, I kind of want to end with giving out some advice, I would say. The big part is, especially when you're coming into like these positions and you kind of have I would say you have to have a passion. This is a job where a lot of people think that, oh, like I can do this. And then they come in and they're like, oh yeah, no, this is not for me. Which I completely understand. This is not for everyone. In which, like I said, you have to have a passion for it and you have to have like the devotion to like want to exceed too as well. With me, like I said, I already knew what I wanted to do in terms of like just exceeding. I just didn't know where that was going to like land me, if that makes sense. I just knew I just wanted to grow. And I feel like when I had that dream, it just kind of just pushed me to like these other opportunities that I've had now. But I do want to give like the advice of just being sure to try things out. Never give up like in the beginning, because at first I was thinking about giving up and I was like, nah, this is not for me. But I'm glad that I stuck it out. And like 5 years later, I'm now in this position and I can see myself being even in a higher position at some point too as well as I grow here at Sonnenberg. So don't give up. Just keep going. If you know you don't have a passion for something, like don't even pursue it. If you feel that you want to grow and you want to try things out, yeah, just try it out. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you know you, and so be sure that you are doing the things that is going to benefit your future. Because that's what I felt like I did. And I feel like helping people on a daily basis, not only the clients and the staff members and the supervisors, has made my life have more purpose professionally. Not personally, but yeah, you get it. Well, kind of personally a little bit too, just because it's taught me so much too, even about my personal life, because I work so much with NBC, which is nonviolent communication. And I think I like tying into like my personal life too as well. So it definitely has like helped me grow professionally and personally. So just keep going and always know what you're doing. Because if you don't know and you're always like on the fence about things, it can definitely bring up like, I guess it can discourage you. But just try your best and yeah, just continue to do what you love.
Hi, I'm Brianna Ellison and I'm one of the operations coordinators here at Sonnenberg. I came into the field in 2021. I had been on Indeed and I came across a job listing for one of our technician positions. Coming into it, I had no idea what ABA was. I didn't know what this role would look like, but I did know that I was looking for a job that could be a career for me and a job that I could find purpose in. So I ended up applying for the job. I got it, obviously, and after going through onboarding and training, I quickly found the purpose and that passion that I was looking for in the services that we provide. And after being in the field for a little bit, I had pursued my RBT certification, and I knew that I had wanted to do more and make more of an impact. And that's when I stepped into our mentorship program. Through our mentorship program, where we mentor new employees coming in, I quickly discovered a passion that I had for helping others grow and find their why within their role. And so I did that for a bit, and going into like those new leadership positions, I was going into it with the mindset of wanting to be the very best at everything that I was doing. And with that, I really struggled with making mistakes and not having all of the information, not knowing all of the things, and being the best at the very things, those things right away. And a piece of advice that I got from one of my mentors at the time was to normalize being imperfect. And normalize that not knowing. And that would be my same advice to anybody either advancing within Sonnenberg, stepping into a new role, coming in completely new to the field, would be step into those uncomfortable situations. And in my experience, at least, the very best things that I have, not only within my career, but in my life in general, have been through trying the uncomfortable, stepping into those situations of uncertainty, those situations that may provoke a little bit of fear. And my other piece of advice would be to find the thing that you are passionate about, find your why, and apply that why to whatever role you're currently in or whatever role that you're pursuing. Find that purpose and carry that through everything that you do. And if you do that, you'll never lose that motivation that you have and that dedication that you have to learning, to growing, to succeeding. And that's a little bit about me and my story and my advice. And thanks for having me.
What I would say to someone who just started today, I basically would just tell them just to take a deep breath and relax, and to understand that we all have to start somewhere. And we all have started. Everybody who works at Sonnenberg have started exactly where you are today. And we've all been there, and we know that it could be nerve-wracking. And we know it could be a lot. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Whatever that help looks like for you, don't be afraid to ask for help. Come in with an open mind, can-do, positive attitude. Come in with a creative heart. And I promise you, you will shine. Your light will shine through, and you will connect with the client. You will connect with the staff, and it in itself is rewarding. It's rewarding, and it will definitely outshine the rough days that you may have. And so I would just say just to keep going, because you are needed. That's my advice.